Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I have a ton of videos on how you can become like these Star Wars and anime characters, but I never made a video about how not to be like this character. And I've made very few vids on anime inspired shows. So without further ado, let's talk about it. Azula is the daughter to that of firelord Ozai and his wife Ursa, and is the sister to that of Prince and eventual firelord Zuko. Ever since she was young, Azula had excelled at almost everything she had done, whether it was her training or ability to strategize given enough time or on the spot. Despite all this, Azula has many flawed character traits, and this would lead to her fall from grace. Here are a couple things you shouldn't do to become like Azula. Number 1. Striving for complete perfection. If memory serves me correct, in one scene, Azula was training on her personal ship. She was performing maneuvers for her lightning bending in front of the other people she considers to be instructors / elders, Lo and Lee. Both of the sisters each offered Azula critique.
Almost perfect. One hair out of place.
But that last critique saying,
One hair out of place,
made Azula trip out a bit, and she stated,
Almost isn't good enough.
Striving for perfection would be one of the main causes to Azula's downfall. Seeking perfection will drive any sane person mad, and we all know that perfection doesn't exist. The thing is, we all have our personal perceptions on what we believe is perfection, and what we believe to be perfection according to our standards is impressive to another person looking from the outside in. The thing about Azula is that her perception of perfection is placed onto her by not only herself, but from others as well. Lo and Lee are the least of Azula's perfection problems, so to speak. You have people like her father, firelord Ozai, emphasize perfection onto her. So much so that I believe the only reason why Azula is powerful is not only for herself, but also for the validation of her own father. And she rarely got that validation from her own mother, who saw Azula as some type of monster even as a child. Do me the favor and remember that perfection, even by your standards, doesn't exist. And seeking perfection for validation of others will slowly rot away at you. And I know some of y'all are thinking to yourself,
Benty, it's easier said than done, bro. It's a natural subconscious thing all humans do.
And you're right about that, can't lie. But make it a habit every day to seek improvement by focusing on breaking your limits, not for the sake of perfection. When you constantly acknowledge your limits with the mindset of finding solutions and not putting yourself down every time you do so, your brain starts to fizzle out that need for total perfection, and simultaneously, you won't end up needing excessive validation from others. Number 2, holding on to past unresolved traumas. Azula has a lot of baggage in her past. Even though her father loved her and hailed her as a prodigy, her mother, like I said before, saw Azula as a little monster. And Ursa never understood why she was the way that she was. The one scene in Avatar that shows what holding on to your past trauma does to you was when Azula saw her mother in the mirror talking to her, and Azula saying that her own mother doesn't love her. Ursa replied,
I love you, Azula. I do.
And Azula threw the brush at the mirror, breaking it, and then proceeded to break down crying. From the outside in, you thought Azula had it all and was this powerful, perfect princess that deserved everything in the world. But all she wanted was not only her father's love, but also her mother's as well. And now that I'm thinking about it, Azula was most likely jealous of Zuko receiving the love from their mother, and that was also what messed up her mind as well. Again, I know it's easier said than done when it comes to dropping your childhood or past traumas, and I'm not saying you must drop it immediately. Unfortunately, there are many people that have episodes similar to or worse than what Azula had towards the end of the show, and my heart goes out to those people. If I'm being perfectly honest, the only advice that I can give is one day at a time. Progression is almost never speedy. It always takes time. For some people it takes them weeks, for others months, and for some years. Holding on to these past traumas will only hurt you in the long run. My hope is that you will take it day by day to self-examine and progress at your own pace. Number 3, terrible social skills. We all remember that Ember Island episode where Azula, Mai, Ty Lee, and Zuko had spent a day at the beach. All of them were pretty much off-putting to most of the people at the beach, especially Azula. Everyone remembers that awkward scene where Azula asked Ty Lee for help on how to get better at socializing and getting attention.
Hey there, sweet sugar cakes. How you liking this party?
And that one scene where she kissed that dude and completely killed the vibe.
Together, you and I will be the strongest couple in the entire world. We will dominate the earth!
It's understandable that Azula's social skills were terrible. She was always surrounded by her immediate family and close friends and hundreds of servants, soldiers, and attendees, though she didn't really have the need to make any new friends outside of her own or get into any relationships of any kind. But Azula in those last 2 clips made me die inside a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay, no, I mean a lot. I flatlined. But just because Azula has bad social skills doesn't mean that you have to. Many people tend to be socially anxious because they're always inside their own heads, judging themselves. Make it a habit of talking to people that are close to you, like your close friends and family. One thing that actually helps in becoming more socially aware is learning to stay in the present moment by practicing eye contact. Now, I don't mean to stare into the other person's soul and don't blink at all, but I am saying that it'd be a great idea for you to look into the person's eyes and make it a habit of putting your focus on their eyes, while occasionally looking away. And what should happen after is you being able to stay in the present moment. Number 4, manipulating everyone using fear for personal gain. We all know this, right? Azula was a grade A class manipulator, and she did so by using fear to her advantage. In doing so, very few people tried to test her. However, as time went on, Azula went crazy with power, like the time that she started banishing her royal subjects for the smallest of mistakes.
You are banished. Leave this palace immediately.
Azula even acknowledges that she rules by fear in that scene we examined earlier when she's talking to her mother.
Well, what choice do I have? Trust is for fools. Fear is the only reliable way. Even you fear me.
Those that didn't fear her drove her to peak insanity, and Azula's mental state is something that she'll never get back by the series' end. And I think it goes without saying that you shouldn't try to manipulate people for your own personal gain, especially with you using fear to coax them into doing something they don't want to do. Even if you don't care about the moral implications of manipulating people, it will eat you alive from the inside out. Fear leads to paranoia, and paranoia leads to the gradual loss of one's mental stability. In some cases, I do feel bad for Azula because she is really a product of her environment, and unfortunately, she couldn't find a way out of it like her brother eventually did. My sympathy with Azula lies with the fact that the only love that she received was from her father, and that was based upon her performance as a firebender, and she thought her own mother thought she was a monster.
My own mother thought I was a monster. She was right, of course, but it still hurt.
By the time we see Azula's mental demise in her final scene, most people feel bad for her because she never found an escape from her own toxic behavior, and that cost her mental health. And if memory serves me correct, she never gained her mental sanity back in the comics. While I feel bad, it doesn't give her the excuse to hurt others just because she can. Perhaps that's her karma in some sense, because what goes around does indeed come back around. Someone let me know in the comments if that scene between Azula and her mother was a fantasy made in Azula's head, or is it actually real? I was actually confused when I first saw that scene when I was a kid. It really did confuse me. As always,
like, subscribe, do all that shit.
And I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.